Thank you, partner. Thank you, Iman. It was funny that Michael started off with the analogy to a marriage between IPCRI and Kas, and Iman and I joke that the analogy that our relationship can also be analogous to a marriage that started with a blind shidduch, because basically Iman and I did not, I think I got the job, and then I spoke 2-3 weeks after that on a Skype conversation with Iman, and a month and a half later she landed in the office and we started working. And I'm happy that we're doing so successfully. So Gershon, and Gershon and Hannah, giving up is not an option. It's not on the table, not for Iman, not for me. So that let me alleviate. That's not something that you have to worry about. And one other thing before we go into what I plan to say is that there's an evident failure of promise. You speak to Palestinians who say, before the Oslo process started, our freedom of movement at least was infinitely better. Jews will say, and I don't want to go into the details and the reasons that this is almost an endless saga, but for years their security was not guaranteed. So we have a failure of promise, and we do have to look back into some of the root causes. We may have to even look back further in history. I do definitely agree with both things that Gershon and Hannah said. Two-state solution, there's no other alternative. It has to, the next step has to be a two-state solution. What I do think is the immediate step, and I don't think that we can push this somewhere into the future, is some sort of, whether it's a confederation or something of that sort, and I think, and try and to start to draw out the type of life and to offer the type of promise that both Israelis and Palestinians will be able to see where this is going. And that's my unplanned remarks, and now those are my planned remarks. I remember the first time that I drove up to Tantul, starting to be coolish day in October last year, and I said, what are the chances that I'm going to get this job? Gershon Basket, how can I think tank and etc. And at the end of the meeting, when I met with Gershon and then with Hannah, Gershon said, well, we're going to Italy next week. You want to come? And that was pretty much it. I knew that Gershon and Hannah were both looking for replacements. They managed this organization for many years, and it's a difficult task to manage an organization. I remember coming in for so many years, and I remember coming into IPCRI, and there was a fatigue. There was a lack of energy, and it was in these huge offices that were underpopulated. Since that we've moved into much smaller and intimate offices, and things have been revving up. And I invite you all to come to our offices. I think you'll witness a buzz. There's a buzz of activity. The phones are ringing. People are talking. Everybody, all the tables are taken. Actually, yesterday we were discussing. We really need to hire someone who speaks Hebrew and Arabic, because it's a funny fact, but there's one Israeli and one Palestinian in IPCRI, and that's Riman and myself. And all the rest are international. So, and there's doing, and there's creating, and there's thought, and there's continued innovation. I think continuing in the footsteps that Gershon and Hannah set, and new ideas, and challenging perceptions, and bringing new people into the group. And focusing on not doing more of the same. And now I'd like, with your permission, to just to detail some of the things that we've been doing in the past year, so that you become, you feel more part of us, and that you can follow our activities on the various platforms and the various ways that we share. So our flagship project actually is also very new for IPCRI, because it's actually the first project that is not a cross-border and does not involve Palestinians in Palestine, and yet it's a very it fits us very well. It suits us very well because it involves a group that has not been enough in the peace discourse, and that is Israeli-Palestinian Arabs. This is a project that's supported by US Aid. It's Young Leaders Partner for Change. It is currently in its second cycle. It brings together young 9th and 10th grade Israelis, Jewish and Arab, in mixed communities. It's actually a very innovative approach, because and we're seeing that more and more projects around are emulating this project. It starts with uninational activities. The kids meet on a uninational basis with it, each one with the corresponding facilitator. And they create a certain, and they discuss their identity and their community and their place in their community and their place in their community vis-a-vis the other and the other community. The second stage is a binational 3-day retreat where they discuss and deal in issues that are concerning community leadership and communication and conflict resolution and things like that. And the third and most exciting, perhaps, stage of the project is a binational project design, build, execution, and delivery, very generously funded by USAID and the American taxpayers' money. This project was vetted actually by the Congress, and the project is going well. The second project, which has gone on pretty much from the first day that, well, it's been going on for many years, but it's a project that CASA is supporting. That's our strategic, our strategic thinking and analysis team. And we have already had at least we've had 5 meetings. And the first paper that we produced, which has been widely received around the world, actually, and it's about normalization. An issue that we had to deal with today, caused some tense minutes yesterday. And IPCRI, I think, delivered an innovative approach. We, as Gilshon said, we do not support normalization. We think that classic normalization activities that really ignore reality are wrong. But when activities are challenging the status quo, it's ridiculous, it's insane, it's wrong to ban them. And that is the guiding light that Liman and I are following in our activities, and we're actually testing our projects or the things that we want to do to see if, in light of our approach, is the activity acceptable to us or not? We've dealt with alternatives, and we're going to be dealing alternatives or developments or how to improve or tweak or innovate the types of solutions and the types of processes towards the resolution of the conflict. We've dealt with collective rights, a very important issue for Israelis and for Palestinians who want to, but within the two-state solution, where there will be the other as well, and we have to ensure the protection of the rights of the other and their collective rights. This was even guaranteed in the Israeli Declaration of Independence. Unfortunately, it hasn't been followed. Our next staff meeting is going to be scheduled to examine or re-examine the Paris protocols. Our next project is also supported by the German government, the German International Development Agency, the GIZ. We call it the Downtown East Jerusalem Business Empowerment Project. Businesses, East Jerusalem in general, Palestinian East Jerusalem is probably one of the most affected by building of the wall. East Jerusalemites have been cut off from the north and from the south. And businesses even more so. So we have started We've developed a survey, and we're going to be surveying Palestinian small and medium businesses in downtown East Jerusalem, and we're going to be doing public events to present the findings, and then we're going to create a committee that is going to think on how to better the situation. And this comes very much in line with what Hannah was talking about, participation. 34% of Jerusalem are East Jerusalemites. And they can participate in the municipal election if they choose. That's a tool that is just out there to be picked up, and we are going to challenge Palestinian thought to reconsider this. Should the Palestinians take their pros and cons on this? But we're going to do a public discussion on this issue through our Afternoons with IPCRI project, which has been refunded by the Dutch government very generously. And here we've also innovated a bit on what IPCRI has been doing. IPCRI always used to do, or I think mostly, I don't know if always, the Afternoons with IPCRI used to be in a hotel in East Jerusalem, in the Embassy. We did last Thursday the first Afternoons with IPCRI in Kiryat Shmona. And we had 50 people, and the issue was on the connection between the occupation and the social economic protest, or the social economic situation in Israel. A fascinating discussion with Professor Danny Gottfried, who joined us, Amal Ziada, who's a member of the board of Israeli-Palestinian, and or a Palestinian citizen of Israel, as she self-determines herself, and member of the Settlement Watch in Peace Now. We have a cooperation with a group that met in IPCRI activities. They, Israelis and Palestinians, who over the past 2.5 years were doing tours in Palestine. We also plan to do tours in Israel. It's called Visit Israel and Palestine, VIP. And we've we've done already 3 tours, I think, and there are more to come. And finally, and perhaps a very important process that we're going through is right now is a strategic planning process. After 25 years and change of leadership, we embarked with support of Shatil, the New Israel Fund, and private donation on a in-depth strategic planning process. We had a 2-day workshop a couple of weeks ago with board members, and we are going to, shake off the dust a bit and redraft IPCRI's mission. It's not going to be a revolutionary change, but it is going to be a change that it is going to be a change, and any change, I think, is important, and it's going to be also a change that is supported by IPCRI board. Those are the things that are funded, and that is how we are paying our salaries and paying our rent, in addition to support by private donations, which we continue to get through a vast network that Gershon and Hannah have built up over the years. In the pipeline, and not only in the pipeline, I'd like to mention our environmental department, and Gershon mentioned Robin Twite, who's the director of the project. Robin and IPCRI have been involved in the Gloa Jordan River project, which is an interdisciplinary project addressing the vulnerability of water resources in the Jordan River Valley under global climate change. This, we hope, is going to lead to the establishment of a trilateral climate change research institute. The Gloa process was involved Jordanians, Palestinians, Israelis, and Germans, and we hope that this institute is going to be set up. We have a project that we are seeking funding for, which is we call it the Airbase project, a very innovative technology for air quality monitoring, the price of which has come down by tenfold and more over the past 2 years due to technological advancements. And the project is planned to put 20 sensors on one side of the green line, 20 sensors on the other side of the green line, providing real-time online information about air quality, actionable information for people with pulmonary diseases, asthma, etc. Collect this information and provide researchers the capability to get real-time online information over a long period, stretched out period of time about the air quality in Israel and Palestine. We also hope, and this is actually being discussed these days, to do a smaller project on both sides of the, in Gaza and on the Israeli side of Gaza. We have a organic farming project in Bardala. We used a innovative crowdfunding tool, internet-based, and we succeeded to raise part of the money for this. We have environmental education projects in areas that are not environment. We're seeking to set up, and I've already started talking with funders about a think tank. We had a strategic meeting about joint environmental policy. Environment, as we know, doesn't have borders. It doesn't know about conflicts. The air that we breathe, the water that we drink, sewage, resources, biodiversity, etc., etc. They know no borders. We had a think tank sponsored by the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung about joint environmental policies, and that has led, we're going to be going early November to Italy to hopefully establish the framework for a joint environmental coordination committee of Israelis and Palestinians. Again, taking into account what Riman mentioned about the separate but coordinated type of activities, which are guided partially by reality, by the issue of normalization, partially by need. So that is something that's going to be coming up. A large project that we are very hopeful, and we've got very good signs of funding, is a very exciting project, which is a dual narrative online museum of the conflict. Just imagine a website that is a museum that spans the conflict over 80 or 100 years, and every event will have the Israeli Zionist narrative, the Palestinian narrative on the other side, and we plan to have that in 4 languages: Arabic, Hebrew, Russian, and English. Again, bringing in more groups that heretofore had not been privy and not been invited into the discourse. We seek to set up a Palestinian young leadership strategic think tank to really bring together young Palestinian leadership to think and to develop strategies as to how to break the deadlock, how to move forward, what has to change, what has to be done in order to break this deadlock, to break this situation. We have a women's leader in peace negotiations, which is also a big project that has already been sent to several potential donors, and 2 much more information type projects. One is, and this comes from a need that we heard on the ground in Palestine, information about Israel, about the Israeli government, about policies, politics, economy, reforms, etc., etc., in Arabic to Palestinian decision makers, and information about the same in Palestine in Hebrew to Israeli decision makers on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, just to bring the information, to bring the awareness, to leap over the wall, so to speak, and to focus a projector, a light on life on both sides for decision makers, which we think is so important. And finally, we would like to develop a podcast. Podcast is a tool. Basically, you record an interview or anything, and you put it on the internet, and people can download it. And we hope that we'll be able to secure some funding for Riman and I to come to Israelis and Palestinians, and perhaps internationals who have what to say, to interview them, and then to be able to spread out these ideas over the internet, to to everybody, whoever has interest in the conflict and in its resolution. Finally, a project that perhaps encompasses a lot of what both the predecessors and Liman mentioned, and that's developing a vision. The importance of developing a vision and promise for Israelis and Palestinians, something that is so lacking today, is something that I think that a think tank, it's one of the main reasons for think tanks to exist. And that is a project that, right now there are no talks, there's no plan. There are things that we know, and there's a square, and we have to see how we circle that square, and we round that square. This is a project that's going to involve Israeli and Palestinian researchers to start afresh, not to reinvent the wheel, but definitely to see how we can develop the wheel, tweak the wheel, see what we can do in order to pull this cart out of quicksand that it's right now very much in. We have to accept the fact that after 21 years, next year it's going to be 20 years of Oslo, or 21 years of since the Madrid process. There's no doubt that the process has not led to the promise. There is a failure. In our book, I think, we can't accept the fact that it's only the players who have failed and the strategy is solid as ever. There has to be some re-examination of that strategy, and that is what we're going to be doing in this project, which we're actually developing these very days. So as I think you can see, we've been quite busy in just under a year since I took office, and 2 months later Liman came on board, and it's time for thanks.